It was May 13th, 1981, a day I will always remember. I was sitting in the campus ministry office at Binghamton College, conversing with a few students who were getting ready for a final exam, when there was a knock on the door, and one of the librarians informed us that the Pope had been shot while in procession in his Jeep in Rome. And so we scurried over to the Student Center building where we could look at the TV monitors. Already a large group of people had assembled there. 4 days later, when the terrorist Muhammad Ali Agha, who shot the Pope, was in Gemelli Hospital in Rome, the Pope prayed for him and said he had forgiven him. He forgave him. And then on December 27th, 1983, the Pope went to Rebecca prison to visit Agha and forgive him again. And he said, I spoke to him like a brother. Talk about divine mercy. You know, on the second Sunday of Easter, in the Jubilee of 2000, at the Mass of the canonization of St. Maria Faustina Kowalska, Pope John Paul II proclaimed that from now on, throughout the Church, this Sunday will be called Divine Mercy Sunday. Divine Mercy Sunday points us to the merciful love of God that lies behind the mystery of the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus. It is believed that between 1930 and 1938, our Lord appeared to Sister Faustina, a sister of mercy in Poland, to reteach us the story of his love, even unto death. And of course, you know that tomorrow, Blessed John the 23rd, who convened the Second Vatican Council and called it a medicine of mercy, and Blessed John Paul II will be canonized. What a great milestone in the history of the Catholic Church. How fitting that the canonization should occur on Divine Mercy Sunday. Now, having said all of that, way before Sister Faustina and way before the popes who are going to be canonized tomorrow, it's important to note that the roots of Divine Mercy Sunday go back to the Last Supper. The Last Supper. Here, Jesus predicts his betrayal by Judas and his desertion by the other apostles in a setting of a table fellowship. And sometimes when we read that story, we don't catch that part of it. And along with the prediction came a promise. It's in John's Gospel. After I am raised up, I will go to Galilee ahead of you. And in Matthew's account, the risen Christ says to the woman on their way back from the empty tomb, go and carry the news to my brothers, that they are to go to Galilee where they will see me. This promise of reconciliation and mercy made at the Last Supper actually lays the foundation for the resurrection appearances. In a true sense, the apparition stories or the appearance stories are stories of reconciliation, just like today's gospel. So in today's gospel, the disciples are hiding behind closed doors, afraid that their fate would become the same as Jesus. And they are full of despair and grief because they think all their hopes for Jesus have now been buried and sealed in the tomb with him. And just a cursory reading of the Gospels tells us that the record of the disciples was not very good. You know, they complained, they misunderstood, they quarreled, and in the end they denied Jesus, they desert Jesus, and Jesus faces the dark hours of his suffering and death utterly alone. Talk about lack of a support system. And when Jesus walked through the locked doors, as described in today's gospel, you know, we have to get in touch with what the disciples were feeling. Awkward? Hardly. Maybe stunned. Embarrassed? Guilty? Maybe they wanted to put their hands in front of their face, go hide in the corner. Here were the disciples, those he had chosen, men practically identical with the sick he came to save. And yet, as he came to calm their fears and walks through the closed doors, his first word is peace. The first word of the risen Christ is peace. He greets his community with the message of peace and reconciliation, with mercy. He blesses his disciples with shalom, peace, wholeness, completion. Jesus endured their dullness, their ultimate failure, but neither his critique nor his comments were ever destructive. In the face of the master they had failed, they detected the infinite compassion of God. The basis, the roots, the seeds for what we now call Divine Mercy Sunday. You know, the members of Jesus' family are, the members of Jesus' community are a family. Reconciliation, compassion, care must mark the relationship within the family. Jesus himself exemplified this at the very beginning of his risen presence within the community. And he tells them also that they have to be now instruments of mercy, instruments of compassion. Jesus says, as the Father sent me, so I send you. The followers of Jesus are expected to duplicate and continue his mission until the end of time. We are not only to receive God's love, God's mercy, but we are to extend it. It has to not only be the vertical dimension between God and ourselves, but it has to be the horizontal dimension. I want to conclude with Pope Francis's message on this Divine Mercy Sunday. He first of all tells us to follow the example of the two saints who are going to be canonized tomorrow. He says, let us be renewed by God's mercy. Let us be loved by Jesus. Let us enable the power of his love to trans our lives too. Let us become agents of his mercy, channels through which God can water the earth, protect all creation, and make justice and peace flourish.